Thank you for being here. So, this project, this is kind of exciting because it's the last stop on our current tour of the service planning areas of Los Angeles. We've been taking this performance around the county to a bunch of different areas because, as you just heard in this performance, we believe that these ideas need to be in every neighborhood and that there need to be physically accessible locations in every neighborhood where people can go. So what we've been doing is having people from the neighborhoods that we're visiting speak to what's going on in that particular neighborhood in a panel after the performance, and that's what we're going to do now. We learned when we started looking around Van Nuys that there's a lot of organizing happening in this area already, which is really super exciting for us. And so this panel is going to be a little bit different today because we're going to be talking about some of the organizing efforts that are already underway in this neighborhood. And then we have Alisa Orduna here, who is someone who really helped with a lot of similar organizing efforts in the Skid Row neighborhood and can speak to how to get some of this done. So why don't we just start by having each of you just briefly introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
I shall start since nobody else will. I'll be first in line. My name is Jelly. I am an unhoused person myself. I'm homeless up on the street. Been like that for the past 2.5 years. Also a member of the Aetna Street Solidarity in the San Fernando Homeless Union. This is very something I'm passionate about, and I wish I had known about or programs such as this was around like 10 years ago, because I always have compassion and empathy for people who are going through a struggle. Like, I understand. And like, so that's what I'm doing. I'm advocating for all of our human rights.
Oh, sorry. I was just trying to gather all that. My name is Rebecca. I was unhoused, and I am currently right now in a hotel room. I am also with the Solidarity group, and pretty much just the same thing.
I'm Carla Orendorff. I'm with Aetna Street Solidarity and supporting the San Fernando Valley Homeless Union. I'm born and raised in the Valley. This is my home. We'll get into the projects and the organizing, but I just want to acknowledge like so many of us in the room who've been part of incredible mutual aid efforts, food justice. I want to shout out Melissa, Polo's Pantry, who's been a mentor for us. Our org was born in crisis, and we met a community of people who were living outside who are also organizing for self-determination. And so it's always been an invitation for those that believe housing is a human right for everyone, that food access to good food should be available to everyone, that everyone should be able to access laundry for free, to be able to take a shower, to be safe, and to have a loving place to go to sleep every night is something that really unites a lot of our communities and our struggles here in LA. So very excited and honored to be part of this conversation about how it's been done and how we make it happen right here in Van Nuys. But yeah, shout out just to a lot of folks like Matt from All Power Free Clinic, too, who's also been with us, and Paisley with RVTV. We've got our folks from Reclaiming Our Homes who are actively fighting an eviction right now. So these are the things that we want to bring into the room. There are so many threads that ground a true housing justice movement here in LA.
So good to see everyone and to learn of what's happening, and look forward to the conversation. My name is Alisa. I've been involved in various roles in homelessness services, so formal and informal, and continue to volunteer and support both the Skid Row community and just
trying to bring that compassion. What is it? Compassion systems breed compassion. Like, how do we do that? How do we center belonging and community versus system and bureaucracy and policy? So trying to, as I kind of age and move out of the way of formal roles, of how can you be that auntie in the gap. And so I think I was like, why do I have to talk? You guys did such a great job with the performance. I'm here to support and share any hard lessons learned that I can. So you guys are the ones doing the work. So however, to be here in support or words of encouragement or don't do that because you're going to bang your head. Any of that, I'm happy to share.
Sounds like a panel of aunties.
I am auntie, I tell you. No, I'm like, because I'm for the youth, I'm Auntie Jelly, but I'm here for all.
Love it.
So, like, I love being an auntie to the world.
Yeah. I love it. This is such a good group. Thank you all for being here. So I think maybe we could start by just hearing a little bit about what's happening in Van Nuys and the San Fernando Valley right now, and as particularly like what efforts are you moving toward and what's already underway?
Yeah. I can start a little bit to get us grounded and then y'all can fill in. So our org started in 2020 in that opportunity of the crisis. We started doing mutual aid, and what we started doing is what we still do and we believe we will always be doing, which is breaking bread together. So it's feeding each other and meeting each other's needs. We're here in Van Nuys in an area that was declared a special enforcement zone, and so that's really important context. There's hundreds of people who live unhoused in this immediate neighborhood. The story of Aetna Street Solidarity predates our organization because folks that were living on Aetna Street, which was one of the largest encampments and communities of houseless people in the San Fernando Valley, before they went to Aetna Street, were actually living in the courtyard right in front of the library in between the courthouse. So that is where people were living, including Becca and others, who very strategically placed themselves there because being houseless is not a crime, and yet it is criminalized, right? And when we started in 2020, 3 unhoused people died every single day, and that number in 5 years has gone up to 7. I think more accurately it's around 9. So that is the reality that we're living in. It's 9 unhoused people are dying every single day on our streets. And so people very strategically, very on purpose, put themselves, like they wanted to bring the conversation around homelessness, which we all see with our eyes, feel with our hearts, and are trying to figure out, well, how do we solve this crisis? And for us, it's the people living it that both are the closest to the reality, but also have the answers. And so people put themselves right in the courtyard because they were like, this is a conversation that needs to be had in public because we live in public. Some city workers told them, we really can't have you outside the courthouse. It's disrupting business as usual. It's business not as usual. Sucks. And that's why
identified priority.
Exactly.
The most.
Exactly. So those they said, you can't be here. But you could move 2 blocks down to Aetna Street, which is an industrial street, and we won't bother you again. How many times people have been told that? How many times people have been told that? And when people did move to Aetna Street, even more problems began because the city decided to place a shelter there, which sounds like a good thing, right? Like, we need shelter, we need housing. But with the shelter came an enforcement zone, and with the enforcement zone, institutionalized sweeps there every single week. And so people lost everything that they owned every single week on Aetna Street, and were subject to unbelievable amounts of police harassment, death. Our friends were left out. to die in the elements. It gets incredibly hot out here.
I think they're paying them all this overtime money for
And-
them to sit in police for nothing.
Yeah, so, living in the zone was no joke, and so doing mutual aid work and solidarity work, meant a lot of different things, but for us, some things that became really clear was the things that people on Aetna Street were fighting for were things that people all across the city are being forced to live without. So many of us cannot afford to do the laundry, don't have access, have hygiene access or showers, and so this became a neighborhood struggle. And folks on Aetna Street were really, invited people to join them in that struggle for housing, but also for services. And so through what we've learned with folks on Aetna Street, we're now currently fighting for universal access centers. So that's a space where anyone can get laundry done, anyone can take a shower, anyone can get something to eat, anyone can get clothes, and those are the kinds of programs that have been designed by people living on Aetna Street. No one lives on Aetna Street now because we live in a city of fences. So anytime they do a housing operation, people are displaced and displaced and displaced, and the fences follow them wherever they go. So we don't give up on each other, we don't abandon one another, and people continue to build. And so people live on federal lands that are run by Army Corps of Engineers now, about 1.5 miles away from Aetna Street, because people are not allowed to return to Aetna Street. They've been fenced out, have been arrested, have had guns drawn to their heads for trying to survive, frankly. So we stayed in, we continued to build with people on the streets, but also in the motels. And so we learned, people aren't allowed guests or visitors. So that was another kind of crucial part, was that people were still experiencing kind of these systems of alienation and literal family separation, and that people could not be with those that they loved. People who lived on the streets for years, even decades, who now were forced to become strangers. That's some of the reasons why it didn't work, and why so many of these struggles were happening on the streets, but also in the motels, and people were still, fighting to support each other, to stay alive, and to meet each other's needs. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about just some of the things that.
The hotel situations is not helpful. One, because the staff is ridiculous. They are not trained to have any compassion for anybody walking through the doors. Continuous harassment, entry of your property or your room without permission. There's a lot of different things that goes on that's wrong with that. Also, like, the pairing up of two people who don't know each other is just failure for success. And it's like, they just want to, take us in, put us on a list, say, yeah, we helped them, we did all we could. But they give any excuse to kick you back out on the streets. After they make this promise, saying, hey, we're going to help you. And then they kick you out back where you are with nothing, and you're like, oh, how am I going to do this again? A week later you'll have somebody, oh yeah, I'm from Lhasa. Do you want housing? Let me take your name down. We'll get you a referral. A referral for what? They're not giving us any information. So it's like, yeah, I'd rather be out here where I know instead of there where it's this big mystery question mark. And from the knowledge that you have from your friends and stuff, it's like, hey, you're back here? What are you doing back out here? I thought you had housing. No, you don't. It's a failed program, and it's just for numbers. It's not for the caring or compassion of anybody, except for people who are trying to line their pockets with dollar notes.
Well, on that note, I've had the opportunity to be in a hotel twice, and it was during the pandemic. I was in Project Room Key, and it's the same thing there. That you can't have visits, you can't have the people that you lived with on the streets in your rooms or anything like that. And it really sucks because the depression kicks in. Then because you have to isolate you know, and you could go outside, have a cigarette, but then as soon as you're done, you gotta go right back to your room. You can't have no socializing, you can't have nothing, absolutely nothing. So, you know, it brings a lot of mental health issues, you know, it brings it, you know, like it really does. It's done it to me, you know, like, and then it was me and my husband, then we got an apartment, and then 2 years later, we got kicked out for non-communication. This is from LA Family Housing. Non-communication, what are you talking about? Like,
You know where I live.
like, and you know, in the 2 years that we lived there, we've only seen you 4 times, you know? How is it non-communication? And then so I became homeless again, and then I thought, you know, hey, here's another opportunity. Then we got into the program for Inside Safe. Yeah. Yeah, it was the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was, honestly, to tell you the truth, I was better on the streets than in a hotel. Honestly. It's the same thing. You can't go in anybody's room. You know, the thing that frustrates me the most is that, you know, of course, we know there's drug use, you know what I mean? There's people that overdose, and the staff there is not equipped with taking the right precautions on how to treat it. You got participants helping staff treat an overdose. What is that? Are you serious? Like, you know, aren't you guys supposed to take these courses before you guys actually, you know, are able to come to work certified? No. Obviously. You know, when you got staff that's running around in circles, and you got the participants saying, here, give me the Narcan, you know, and doing, you know, the CPR and the chest compressions and everything, it's just like, where's staff? You know, and you're on the phone with 911 at the same time. You know, I've lost a lot of good people in these rooms, you know, in the hotel rooms. And when I was in Project Repeat, from the time I got there, there was 45 deaths. And out of the 45, there was only 5 that were health related, and the other 40 were non-revivable overdoses. And so when you take a community out of its, you know, where they're at, and you put them in these rooms where they have to isolate, and we're so used to watching out for each other, and we can't go see them, you know, however many times a day that we would go see them out on the street, because we know that these are the type of drugs that they're using, that they shouldn't be alone. Well, 3 checks during the day, which is morning, lunch, and after dinner. What happens in between those hours? Nobody's going to check. You know, I'm getting kicked out. I got a 30-day notice after being there 2 years. I got a 30-day notice because my husband comes and sees me in my room. Well, I thought it was okay because staff allows it. Staff opens the door to him when I'm not there to wait for me. You know, and you're gonna turn around and tell me I got a 30-day notice because my husband comes to my room to visit me? You guys allow it. If it wasn't allowed, I would figure you guys would be like, hey, sorry, you know, you can't go in there, or hey, you know, but it's like, it's frustrating because I have now anywhere between 13 to 15 days left there. And I've already had 2 opportunities to get housed. And those 2 opportunities came and went, you know, and it wasn't to my doing. You know, it wasn't me saying, oh no, giving them that no, because you only get 3 no's. If within those 3 no's, if that 3rd one, then they either take you to a tiny home or a shelter. And it was only supposed to be a 90-day program. I've been there 2 years, and now just barely getting kicked out. You know, and it's really sucked because, you know, I'm over here thinking, oh God, what am I gonna do? Where am I gonna go? You know? And as much as my husband was in my room, I was in his room. Not one time did he get a notice of not being able to have anybody in his room. Not one time did he get a 30-day notice. It's just me. And you got people that are there that are sneaking people in left and right while staff just watches it happen. And I'm sitting there like, and I'm getting kicked out? Like, what's going on here? You know, and it's like, it's really frustrating. So I'm dealing with that right now, and it's just like, for me, what better people know what the homeless need is the homeless. Put us up in there. Let us show you guys how it's really done. You know, it's like, that's where I'm at right now. Like give us that opportunity, because obviously you guys are not doing the job that you guys are supposed to be doing correctly. You know, they're revoking vouchers from people there at the hotel. You know, it's like, why are you guys revoking the vouchers? Well, because there's not enough funding anymore. Well, that's not my fault. That's not my problem. You know, we were told and promised that we would have housing. So
That was the deal.
where's it at? You know, we had to leave. We had to get up and leave and let them throw everything away. You know, and we had to do it on camera, and just to get a room. And then after you hear is, well, you should be thankful that you at least got a room with a bathroom in it, and then you were able to have a shower and a bed to sleep on. I could have done that in the street. Simple as that. You know, like I could have really done that in the street. You know, I feel safer out on the street than I do in the hotel. You know, there's so, like, it's just like they got the priorities wrong. You know, and it's really frustrating, but let's see what happens.
Well, Alisa, I want to give you an opportunity to, you probably have stuff you want to respond to, but also we're excited to have you on this panel because you were instrumental in bringing the community together for the Refresh Spot and the Skid Row Action Plan, and it would be amazing to hear a little bit about how those things came together and how lessons from that might apply to some of what is happening in this community.
Yeah, first, so sorry, just all that you guys are going through as you're on your, your path, and to have promises dangled in front of you, and then just to pull away, just, there's no excuse for that, and that lack of humanity that's in our system is unacceptable. And what comes up, and I'm going to call on my colleagues who were part of the Skid Row Action Plan too, but what comes up is, the county is developing a new department. They're kind of reconfiguring LASA and pulling dollars out, and there's going to be opportunities where now is the time to organize, to really put forth ideas of how to have a compassionate, I don't want to, what's another word for system, a compassionate way of helping each other.
People have a compassionate community.
Compassionate community,
Okay,
yes.
that's the word.
I don't want to use the word system, but that's so
It shouldn't be a system, because it's like, system is like not for the human.
That's like that mutual aid, like how do you have that mutual aid spirit in the delivery of services? So just wanted to name that's going to be a huge opportunity in organizations to start now around prioritizing what it should look like, how should it serve, that it shouldn't just be downtown, it should have offices everywhere where people can go to. So that's coming down the line. And the other advocacy part real quick, because you mentioned, I forgot what you called it, but the shower.
Universal Access Center.
Yeah, Universal Access Centers, and we know at least at LA City, the budget is a proposal to cut funding for those programs. So that's like, it may impact the Refresh Spot, it'll impact Shower of Hope that goes around, kind of the mobile shower. So that's another way that people just start calling your council person now and saying, restore that funding, or don't take that funding away, because it should be expanding and not shrinking. So those are just two action things. Now, how do we do this? I'll start with the Refresh Spot, and Tom was a part of that effort, who's in the room. For years, organizations like LA Can, which is an advocate group, were saying there are not enough toilets in Skid Row. And when you looked at the population, they did research, Inner City Law later on did research, and it was determined that if we were to set up a refugee camp in Skid Row, refugee camp, just a safe place where people could go in crisis and ideally get services, it failed the standards. There were not enough toilets per person to even meet the standards as a refugee camp. And so we use that data. We use the report, No Place to Go, that LA Can, they did 2 versions of. We did the inner city law report. And around the same time, there was hepatitis A was happening. So it was spreading out. Hepatitis A, you stop it from being able to wash your hands, is how you stop it. But there was no real access to toilets or places where people could do that. So at the time, I was in the mayor's office, and it's like, it just didn't make sense. It just, why we were ignoring this public health crisis, why we were ignoring compassion for people just didn't make sense. So luckily I had a boss at the time, Deputy Mayor Brenda Shockley, and she said, do what you need to do. Like, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to change some big policy, but you can help people. So do what you need to do. I was like, oh, all right, that sounds good. So we reached out. I'm trying to think, Tom, how we came up with emerald necklace. I'm missing that part. But
Yeah. Right, I know that part.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, that's literally what was in my mind, because I think it's a wonderful example that can be applied elsewhere. Is you came up, so you brought it to us, Emerald Necklace, which is a nationwide design concept, basically connecting green spaces. It did not go over well in Skid Row. Apparently, there's like a bunch of guys who don't necessarily want to be part of the Emerald Necklace. But you came up with it because it was a concept that people in City Hall understood. So you're speaking their language, and then you literally came in and said, okay, this is what's going on in City Hall, to get them thinking the way you want them to think. Now, what do you call it? and then it was named the Skid Row Community Improvement Coalition. But so there's like concepts and language that the folks in City Hall relate to, so let them have their language. Then there's language that people outside City Hall relate, and then let them have their language, and then keep the dialogue going, so that rather than like a competition or a power struggle, it's like everybody respects everybody's language, and they're united in accomplishing whatever the goal is.
That's right. So in essence, it was developing a place-based strategy and looking at the assets that were in Skid Row. You guys had already done our Skid Row, which was looking at like creating carts where people could have information, toilets, signage, so people knew where to go. Like, coming here to the library, I was like, where's the library? I asked 5 people, like, where's the library? Just kind of basic things like that, so you felt it as a neighborhood, and you have these systems. So anyway, we met, we did some brainstorming, we prioritized, the community said we've got to do toilets first. That led to an 8-month engagement. So meeting every week with the Skid Row Improvement Coalition. It bounced back between an organization called USEP or LA Can. We provided dinner, and we had some hot, hard conversations trying to get everyone on board. So these weren't mainstream providers. These were people, our neighbors that may have been intense, may have been housed. It was people coming together saying, this is what we want for our neighborhood. And then using those other crises. So using the hepatitis A, using the reports to finally say, we need to do this, and getting buy-in from it. The other part was being very strategic of teaching people about the city budget process. So around the same time, the budget hearings were starting to go. So we said, now's the time to protest. Now's the time to show up at City Hall. I remember LA Can members came in with toilet seats, saying we demand toilet. And so it was like I was pushing inside while they were pushing outside and leveraging each other. And believe it or not, I have to give respect to, no matter what you think about this person, but it was council member Jose Huizar that put in the initial 1.5 million. Believe it or not, I know, for a lot of reasons. This one he got right. He was the champion, because you need a city council member to champion a budget line item. Believe it or not, he took the money out of a discretionary budget and applied it to Skid Row. Now maybe he knew what was coming down the line and was trying to get some good PR.
Do some good before he got federally indicted.
Exactly. That I'm sure.
I'm cool with that.
But he did. And
He did say he did, didn't he?
All right, I'm gonna
beginning.
I'm gonna add some juicy details to this story. Some juicy details, because Jose Huizar, it was Martin, his policy director, who did the magic.
Martin.
Jose Huizar doesn't know what's going on. And that's not the juicy detail. The juicy detail is that you said, okay, if we're gonna do this refresh spot, it's gonna cost, I think, you said $500,000 to be open from like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., something like that. So we all marched down to the LAHSA commissioner meeting, and we've all got like, here's your talking point, here's your talking point. We've got it all lined up, thinking that we know what's actually happening. And so they've got the paperwork, and I pick up the paper with the agenda, and I'm like, well, we were told this is 800,000, but it's listed for 1.2 million. And then all of a sudden, no, there's the refresh spot, and then there's the refresh spot part 2, which is the LAPD getting $400,000 to do security around the area.
Oh, fancy that.
And yeah, fancy that. So then it was Martin who took it to the next level and say, oh, 1.2 million to get the LAPD, and it's mainly the money goes for like 12 hours. No, we're going to do it 24 hours. We're going to jump it up to 1.5, and we're getting rid of the LAPD. That's how it went down.
There you go. See, I was like, I can't remember all of that. There was a lot. So, in lieu of LAPD, the community wanted their own safety. So there was a part of the expense to it was not only, the infrastructure, but making sure that peers were hired to be safety ambassadors with the program.
Yeah.
So it was also a job training component or job placement component. So it created jobs, needed people to clean the showers and guide people and sit with people and take care of animals while people were taking a shower, all of those things. And we also brought in, I'm blinking, a derivative of the Fruit of Islam as the initial safety patrol, because that's who the community wanted. And the community also selected their provider, homeless healthcare, because of their harm reduction approach. And I think we brought in Goodwill to kind of lead up some of the employment.
Okay, I can add
pieces.
another juicy detail.
Okay.
She's the wizard in City Hall that's making this thing come together. That's literally never come together at the grassroots level. So like 10 of us in the room, you said, okay, now here are all the major nonprofits, most of whom you don't like, but they've got the existing contracts with LAHSA. Now, do you want one of the smaller nonprofits that you like better to do this? Because it'll take about 6 months to line them up with LAHSA. We're like, no, this is a hygiene crisis. We want somebody right now. Like, okay, here's the 8 groups. You can choose one. Well, we dislike them the least. And that's how homeless healthcare goes.
LA can push homeless healthcare, yeah. And believe it or not, homeless healthcare originally did not want to do it.
No.
So Mark and I got into kind of a terse of words, and I was like, just do it, God, dig it. Got to that point. And now it's funny when I hear homeless healthcare, like this model has gone international where people come and visit because they want to know how it gets done, and they have a lot of pride. So it's all good, so just
It's all good.
don't take a no.
It's actually the reason they have the most credibility right now.
Yes.
But it's like, don't take a no, yes.
So let's open up this conversation because I'm feeling like I know that there are a lot of other people in the room who I'm sure have things that they want to contribute, especially as we're talking about this particular neighborhood. I feel like we could do some troubleshooting, some discussion of what I find really interesting is this discussion around how do you push from the inside as well as from the outside. I mean, it feels like it's like that sort of translation of what does the language in City Hall sound like versus what is the language that we actually need to use to, like, in the community, to have the community on board.
Yeah, you know what? They definitely need to have like a moderator because like you definitely need to have somebody that can transition from both worlds because like as somebody be up on the street, like, and even people who've been there longer than I have, they have a distrust, which is, understandable because we get stabbed in the back a lot. And so like just to have somebody that, that we can communicate with and that can communicate with them because like their language is very specific. And people don't understand like the words mean something and like they can say something and like we think that they mean something, but you have to like look at that little fine print and everything. I'm like, because they trick you even with these inside safe and stuff. Like people don't understand what they're signing up for. I'm like, you're only getting 2 years of discounted rent people. They- yeah.
With the refresh, which I feel like learning the history and how it was fought for and won, like that really is a community win, where it was like it sounds like it was through the struggle of like, you know, identifying what the needs are of a community and really struggling to figure out like, okay, how do we push for something that like benefits everyone, you know, and like that to me is the future. That's also, you know, why it's called the Universal Access Center.
It's for
also,
everybody.
It's for everyone,
Yeah.
and like that's something that I think we have to fight for. But what, to me, it was like the refresh spot is there's only one in the city, and to me, we have to unlock, you know, what were some of the struggles and history. How do we bring that to every neighborhood in the city? And it does require, you know, why I love this play is because you know, it dares to challenge us on like how can we organize like block by block, especially like we came out of this fight against 4118, which most of you all know banned sitting, lying, sleeping,
Right.
And came after you know, came after Aetna Street. It banned people who made Aetna Street what it was from their own block. And so part of our strategy to fight against the criminalization is we have to be organized block by block for the things that we all need and deserve. And so the story of like how that was done on a community level, really like a grassroots level, and how you maintain that is really important. And I just want to highlight, we did a survey after the wildfires with folks at the compound, also with people living in Skid Row through Sidewalk Project, and that survey was like how the wildfires impacted houseless people, which was like not really part of the conversation, but like our people who were like dealing with the toxic air quality from all 4 fires here in the valley were like very impacted, were hospitalized, have had trouble like people, you know, were needing to go to the hospital at like rates, like our people are strong, but like they were really injured and were really sick, and none of that, you know, there is no like our city doesn't care, there wasn't any plan. But when we asked people like what could be done on like a practical policy level, people that we know that were living outside were like, you have to open up the metro stations as emergency centers. Like every station is kind of built for this. They can be transformed quickly, you know, in the face of a citywide disaster. And so we have to look at this kind of place-based, practical. I was like, we have the infrastructure with Metro. Why can't there be a universal access center at every metro station? Why can't people do laundry? Why can't people take showers? Why can't people get food? Why can't people have clothing at all of these stations? We can, and like it made me realize, I got emotional because I was like, this is what people living on Aetna Street have done. They're right outside of the Van Nuys metro station. Like they've been showing people like, here's a model of how we shelter ourselves, feed each other, resource what we need. And they were punished for it, right? They were punished most severely for doing like what needed to be done. And so like the model lives, like it's here, and like it needs resources and support. It also needs like real cooperation from entities like Metro. And I was like, that's who we're thinking about too. I was like, what would a center or space like that look like here in Van Nuys? I was like, we have metro stations all along the orange line, all along the red line. We don't need to build or create anything. It's already there. People already use it. Like, and that's what our projects are based around. When we hold a really, really free market, where we distribute clothes, and you know, it's a low-key environment where people can get what they need. And so you get a wide range of people who are housed, unhoused, coming off of work. And we learned, that's where we learned people, like most people can't afford to do the laundry, like in the city, and we don't talk about it because there's a lot of shame around that. But what that would do and like what that could look like here is like really, you know, it's something that we can fight for. It's something we can do this year, like this summer even. We can do it, and I think it's about finding, like, you know, what that process was of how, like, it was done for the refresh spot, and how, you know, we can imagine public space, like, right now, and how we can actually meet our needs. And I think that is how we build those systems of care. And I think that word, you know, I think systems of care are very possible. I think they should be controlled at the neighborhood level. Like, I think it's communities that'll lead the way on that. And we have models, like I think of the Peace and Healing Center in Skid Row, and like they're very carefully, like their approach is very relational based. It's like really deeply, there's no scaling up, it's all relational. It's all like understanding the relationships that make a community, you know, worth, like, that keeps people alive and going. And like, it's like also the ability to contribute. It's like asking people, like, what can you contribute? And that's what I love about the end of that play too, is like, you know, it's asking people, like, what are the skills and like the things that you can bring to this? And like, it's actually how we build that system.
You know, right, I'm sorry, I don't mean to really interrupt, but you just touched base on a lot of things that we actually did on Aetna.
Exactly.
You know, laundry, people were having a hard time doing laundry, going to the laundromat, and what happened? We got a little washer on the street, you know, and people did their laundry there, you know, as a community.
The other part was people were getting kicked out of the shelter because they were doing laundry for people, their family members that lived outside in tents. And so Salvation Army, which we call Starvation Army, because they really earn their name sometimes, they kicked people out for doing laundry for each other and feeding each other. And for us, that went against everything that we practice as a community. And so we're like, we can't normalize these systems that kick people out for doing the human stuff. It was really created.
Work in the store.
You know, and I kind of want to, you know,
They'll
touch
get
base
you
on
if you
something else,
poop
you know,
wrong.
like, you know, people got to remember that, you know.
Really? Goodwill does the same thing, by the way, where you put your money in their bank.
You know, you gotta remember that these people that are on the streets, they lived on the streets for a very long time. You know, some of them lived on the streets for like 30, 40, 40 years, you know? It's all they know. So when you take them straight out of the, okay, so like taking them straight away from the street, just bam, like that, you gotta remember that they don't know how to live in the four walls anymore. You know, they would have to be transitioned little by little to be able to be in four walls. You know,
sometimes
because
them four walls are worse than being on the street.
Especially when you're secluded alone,
Yes.
without family, without friends.
Right, exactly.
and that's another reason why a lot of people go back to the streets.
Right.
They get lonely.
You know, so like, you know, you know, a lot of people they don't realize that, you know, and it's just, you know,
So
something
that's
that,
part of the thing that they have to build that relationship by relationship, you know, because like
Well,
you need to understand like people's individual issues. Like you can't just be like, oh, they're all homeless, they're all drug dealers, let's get them to addiction treatment. You know what I'm saying? That's not the case.
but that's how they treat it.
I know. It's not.
But that's how they treat it, and that's
That's
why.
cheap for 2 weeks. They'll end up on something too.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
But I think people like, oh, people who are unhoused. They're like, people who are unhoused are drug addicts. I'm like, people who are housed are drug addicts.
Okay.
And the differential, I'm like,
Huh.
more of them are doing drugs more than us.
And
So
they get
I'm
more
just-
drugs than
They
alcohol.
just got some
more
walls to
money.
cover them.
You know, one thing
We
that's
had tarps.
coming to mind, because you asked kind of like, thinking back about what happened in Skid Row, what could you do here? Is kind of there's two things coming up. It's kind of documenting that history, and as you were talking about creating the universal access center at the metro station, I was thinking like, wow, it would be great to do some kind of surveying this summer. Like partner with some of the organizations or college students or volunteers and get people, you know, that are living in the community to survey, and you know, you can come up with like, where do you do your laundry, or you know, like something like that, as well as restroom, and both unhoused and housed because everyone is
You're all part of the
struggling with it.
community.
Everybody's
Yes.
struggling with it. And the other, this is the writer in me, when you told the story about how staff didn't know how to do overdose reversal, and oftentimes we conflate harm reduction with just overdose reversal, where harm reduction really is about mutual aid and about how a community comes together to take care of itself. So it's no wonder staff, if you don't have that philosophy, it's no wonder staff wouldn't even know how to do the overdose because they're not seeing it as part of a community to do whatever it takes. And so I think there's a narrative that you all have and connecting you with support to get that out, and then that's where you just like bang it out. You just go to council, you go to board of supervisors, any press, there are a couple independent radio stations out here in the valley, and just get that story out there, and then you find those help, not burdening you with this, like whatever you need, I can help, whatever. Find those champions to really push your story forward. But get started like collecting, and it doesn't have to be hard data, just stories or a 5-question survey or
I got
something.
stories for all day long.
I know. I'm like, you come interview me every day of the week. I have a new story.
We got stories.
Yeah.
First of all, I've never heard someone who's lived on the street for any length of time call themselves unhoused. It's like a black person calling themselves unwhite.
It's the new
I'm
language.
offended by it.
I'm speaking their language. But whatever.
I'm not unhoused. But with all these well-funded programs and everything, how many people have you actually put into housing? Because the cure for homelessness is not, toilets are needed, I tell you that, but that's not going to cure homelessness. Housing cures homelessness. How many people has your program housed?
The refresh spot I would have to ask. So what makes it unique and more than just toilets is that you do have homeless healthcare there that has access to the housing vouchers and the housing placement. So I know they have that data. We would just have to get that.
What I'm saying is, you get a program and you put $1.5 million into it or $1 billion into it, and no one gets an apartment. I was with this place, Cornerstone, for 8 years. They would come out every month and say, I got your voucher in the drawer. Oh, I just forgot it today.
Oh.
This is ridiculous. I called LA Family Housing every day for 2.5 years. They never called me back once. That's just rude, I don't have the time for that. And this is what's happening. These places, they want to sign up homeless people because they get funding for that. Like Cornerstone, they got funding for every homeless person they signed up, but they had no incentive to house them because that took them off their list and it reduced their funding. And they didn't. I just got evicted after waiting 10 years to get housing. I got evicted because I was in the hospital too many times. And it just was too much paperwork for them. And they had no other, they still haven't given me any reason why I come home from the hospital one day and nice note on my door saying, you gotta be out tomorrow. It's just the focus is in the wrong place. You put people in houses. You put people in cheap apartments, like people in a box. But no one's getting housed now, and so things aren't changing.
That's very,
And people when you can't cure drug addiction on the streets. People get housed, and a lot of them do get sober. But you're not going to do that on the streets. It's too cold. It's too many problems, and there's too many times that you can't fall asleep on the bus stop. So I can't stand the way speed makes me feel. That's just because I have health problems. But I don't know anybody who's not on the streets, pretty much, except the ones around fentanyl, and that's even worse. See people standing up and sleep. They fall asleep like this. They're driving, and they're like this, falling asleep. That's how they sleep at night, standing up. And as soon as they come to, they go and they do some more, and they're asleep again. They sleep through their entire life. That's it, until they die. Doesn't take very long. But it's just, I don't know. All those things are important, but you got to put people in housing somehow. And it's just, it just seems like people in houses who are making these programs, and now people are living on the streets.
That's part of the problem.
That's why I said.
I'm not saying sign up people living on the streets, because most people living on the streets are frankly retarded. I don't know how else to say it. They're the most universally selfish group of people I've ever met. I did that a little survey of other homeless people. You steal stuff? Of course they steal stuff. People did not understand that I just didn't like to steal stuff. If you're hungry and you're feeling that, it's a panic you get when you don't know where your food is coming from. If you want to steal something to eat, I don't got any problem with that. But it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. I know the people in the sport. I don't like stealing stuff. That's all it is to it. And but that's I have not been one of the person who has beaten me. To be honest with you. And you know I do music. I did music, but I have a science background, so I know a little bit how to set up a research program. And this is something I really wanted to know about. And I asked every single homeless person I found, just a few basic questions. Another one is, none of them, if you said, what do you want to do in 5 years? No one had an idea. No one had any goals or anything, and that moves you along in life. If you don't have, there's nothing you want to do tomorrow besides get some money to get some speed. Don't even get food. Once or twice a day, I would come to people and say, can't eat my dinner.
I'm sorry. Like, you're talking about the few that you've encountered, okay? I myself, I know so many who have so many passions and things that they want to get into. Please let me finish.
I know, I want to hear you.
Okay? It's like that they want to get into and participate in, but they can't because it's like we're in a society that's beating people down because they don't have the resources that they should have, period, to make their dreams come true. So when somebody's continuously beaten down, they get stuck in a hole, which a lot of people are just depressed, can't get out of the funk because the society has made this. Now, me, myself, I have 1,000 things that I want to do, okay? And I know 1,000 other homeless, unhoused people. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, sir. Yes, I do, sir. Yes, I do, sir. Yes, I do, sir.
Okay.
I know a lot of people. And because I do my humanitarian work, I get to know a lot more. So you cannot tell me what I know.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You're right. I can't tell you that.
I think this is why this
It's depressing. That's all.
Yeah, you're depressing me with your BS.
It's okay because there is no monolith. People who live outside have everyone has something to contribute, and eliminating the need to steal, which is very real. Many of us have been criminalized for stealing food to meet our needs, and that's a very important conversation to have, and it's why we're talking about the universal access centers and places to go, because people are told where they can't go and they can't be. And it's when we as a community come together and decide where are we allowed to be, where do we get to heal, where do we actually get to figure out our own answers to our problems. It's going to be, that work is really tough. And so anyone that said oh man, it was real, that's what being in community is. It is struggling together. It is fighting. Honestly, because we do not talk to each other. We don't know what's going on. And when we're hungry, when we've been isolated, when we've been alienated, when we've been lied to and abused, we've got to have places where people can go to figure things out in community. So there's nothing to fear about that. Yeah.
I think you're right, but I also think that she's right and I think he's right. What happens in this community and what goes on in people's mind and the experience in life, everyone has a different story.
Yes.
So sometimes we
He's
do
just
have to
grouping
pick up.
everybody into a whole thing. Yes, okay, a lot of people want to be
No,
rebels.
I don't mean it the way
But
you're saying it. I
it's just stupid.
I don't mean it the way you're saying it, ma'am. I think I respect what you're saying, and it's very deep. And what you say is very important. And everybody is valuable. Everybody.
Every single person.
But the
exactly.
thing about
Thank
it, the nightmare of being homeless or not having food, so many different people has adapt to that differently. Scientifically saying mentally, and right there, you might have had it better than a lot of other people.
No,
it's
that's not what I'm talking
I'm
about.
saying it
That's
like
not
this.
what I'm
Look,
talking about.
I'm going to
Every
say it
person
like
deserves
this.
to
One
have
woman
some
got
food.
raped and the other one didn't.
Right, they're not going to think of things the
So
same
that's
way.
what is here. He's saying his point of view,
But he's
and
grouping
you.
everybody. He's like all the homeless people.
Well,
no,
he might have
sir.
been
You
around
can't say all the
1,000. You
homeless
might have
people
been
because
around a million.
I'm not like that.
I understand what you're saying, but what we need to do is connect this to reality, and everybody has a different
And I'm
story to tell.
connecting
And if
everybody
we
to
find
the
the
reality.
one person has the same story that everybody else have,
Nobody
then
has
we
the
would
same
not be
story.
on the same level.
The only thing we're going through some of the same experiences.
So-
Nobody got
so,
the same story.
I think the question is, how to make what you guys want real. Right?
Yes.
And I
Exactly.
think,
Well, that's what I was
Alisa
gonna say next,
was
right?
hitting on some of those
I
things
get
about
thought
when she
every
was saying
damn time I
about
talk.
taking, doing surveys, getting stories, and getting documentation, and then finding the people in the community
Yes.
that can be the champion that she was, for example, not only for the repressed but more recently also for the Skid Row Care Campus.
Yes, which is
And
huge.
so I mean, that's the work that you guys need to do, and we're all behind that.
I do want to just acknowledge that this is a really frustrating thing to
Yes.
have to talk about. Like this, like, how do we get City Hall to understand these basic needs that you all are articulating really clearly is extremely frustrating. It's frustrating that this is something that we have to strategize around in the first place. And I think that it does raise tensions. When
What I think
it's
needs to
basically like,
happen
how do we get people
what
to
people need.
recognize
They
the
need healing
humanity
We all
of
need to be heard.
humans,
Yeah.
right?
is
So,
we
I
need
don't know, I'm
somebody
just
that's gonna
very-
be able to go to these meetings and speak on our behalf.
Yeah.
To go there and let them know, and then come back and let us know exactly what it is. So it's like a give and take, you know what I mean? Because that's the only way it's gonna happen, is it's gotta be a give and take. Let's see,
Yes.
we bring this to the table, and what do you guys bring to the
They need
table?
to read what we go, they need to read what's going on in this room, because they don't give a damn about what we say. They like reading, just like a judge. He wants to read the deposition or whatever. So if somebody is writing what she said, he said, she said, he
You know, I
said,
ain't got
and we
time.
put this together, everybody will get freedom. Other than that, we'll still be in these rooms fighting for nothing.
Yeah,
What do
because
you call
you know,
those ladies that
everybody
work
got to
in
be
front that
included.
are
Everybody got to be
sponsors?
included because it's
That's what
absolutely.
we need.
And what I would say,
Good
just
job.
in this
Thank you, ma'am.
example,
That's
is
all
what
I
we
want.
went through for 8 months, because everyone's coming in with their own
Yeah.
experience,
Yes,
and
which is
we
real.
trigger each other, and but what the beauty was how do you still hold on to the humanity through that conflict,
Yes.
through those tension points, and
Yeah.
get to the point where, and what do we need to do to make these spaces safe where you can have the conversation?
Yeah,
You know,
look,
so I'll give you an
I
example.
personally don't mind the argument. I
Yeah.
debate all day, but when somebody hits that button where it's like, oh no, Jelly, you know, I fight for me and for my people. Like, I am not going to allow somebody just to have that thought, because that thought is wrong. I'm sorry, like, that is how I am, that is how I've been bred. Like, sorry, no, you're not gonna put me in a box, because I know me. I'm an educated person. I went through a whole bunch of different things. Yes, I've had good things happen, bad things happen, but this is why I like all different types of people. It's not about, oh, how much money you have. No, I'm interested in the person. That's what I'm interested in. And like, over these years I've been homeless, like, I really have got to build or meet so many people who are unhoused, who are amazing and contributing to their community. Like, our job is to give back, everybody, like, literally.
That's right. Yeah, everybody. That's right. That's exactly right. I think that's a very good place to end it. Everybody's going to get back.